Hey there friends, it's Mandy. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about how you can incorporate yoga into your daily life if you don't have time to get to the studio for a full hour-long practice. So whenever you're ready, let us get into it. So when I first started my yoga journey, one of the things that I really struggled with was finding any kind of consistency within my yoga practice, especially because I was of the mindset that in order to practice yoga and to say I practice yoga, I felt like I had to be in a studio class, like really working myself up into a sweat, and really physically working my body. And it wasn't until honestly, it wasn't really until I got into my yoga teacher training when I realized that there's so much more to yoga than just the physical practice, than just working our bodies and building up a sweat on our yoga mat. And I realized that with our yoga practice, because it's not just about the physical body, it's a spiritual and entire philosophical system. Because this is such a rich and nourishing practice, there are so many facets of yoga that you can practice every single day, regardless if you have time to make it onto your yoga mat or not. So, and that's really what I want to talk about in today's video, is just to kind of give you guys some tips and some ideas, kind of get the ball rolling a little bit, so that way you can come up with your own ways that you can practice your yoga on a daily basis, especially when we don't have time to get a full physical practice in. So the first thing that I want to mention is just taking a moment, even if that's just snagging 2 minutes while you're at your desk, and just taking a moment and just breathing. And yes, I know we breathe constantly on a daily basis, right? If we wouldn't, we would die. I know it's necessary. However, what I mean is that not necessarily just that like quick breathing through the chest that we typically do on a daily basis, but really just taking a moment and really focusing on your breath. Now, coming out on Wednesday, I have a video all about 3-part breath. So if you're not totally sure what I mean by that, because I'm going to talk about that in a second, then stay tuned for Wednesday for that video. But what you can do for your breath, right, is to just take a moment, maybe close your eyes, and just really start by just noticing your breath. Maybe you notice at first where you're breathing, whether you're breathing through the chest, through the belly, or maybe somewhere in between. You might notice the rhythm of your breath. You might even notice how fast or slow you're breathing, whether you're breathing through the nose or the mouth, or maybe some kind of combination of the two. And just really take that moment of mindfulness to just tune in to your breath. And then once you really feel like you've gotten a good sense of where you are, then from there, slowly just begin to deepen your breath, slowly starting to work your way into that deep yogic breath, or that 3-part breath that I mentioned. And maybe just take 5 or 6 rounds of breath if that's all you have time for. And then from there, you might just allow your breath to return back to its own natural rhythm. And again, just notice how the breath might be different now in comparison to when you started. Now, it doesn't have to just be taking that moment of that deep yogic breathing. You can also, of course, if you're familiar with other pranayama techniques, you might take your alternate nostril breathing. You might take some ujjayi breaths. these are entire videos on their own, so I don't want to take a whole lot of time explaining those, but trust me, I will be making some more videos about different breathing techniques, or in Sanskrit, our pranayama techniques. So if you don't know what those are, no worries. Stay tuned for later videos coming on that. So that is my first tip, is just taking a moment and coming to your breath. That is all you need to do in a given day, and you'd actually be surprised at how much that can really help and affect your stress levels, help affect your moods in a quite positive way. Now, another way that you can incorporate yoga into your everyday life, into your routine, is taking a moment of mindfulness. Now, within our yoga classes, or at least within my yoga classes, I talk a lot about just becoming the observer to your own experience. So just taking that time to kind of separate yourself and really just notice what's happening within your mind, what's happening within your body, what's happening emotionally. And this is a really beautiful thing that you can do on and off your mat. So again, you might just take a couple minutes, even at your desk, maybe while you're driving in your car on your way to an appointment. And just take a little bit of moment of mindfulness. So maybe you include this with the breath, and what that would look like, or one way that I like to incorporate mindfulness, is to just do a body scan. So starting from the top of the head and working my way all the way down the body through the fingers and the toes, and just start to notice what's there. So you might notice any maybe areas where you're gripping. Maybe you might notice areas that feel neutral. You might notice even areas of the body that are maybe feeling a little bit looser than they typically are. Maybe you have an area where you tend to grip, but you're actually quite relaxed there. And just systematically just work your way down through the body and really just observe what is happening within the physical body to start. Now, as you do this, remember we're taking a step back and removing ourselves, and we're just noticing. So as you notice what's happening, I want you to really do your best not to judge what you find. And for now, don't worry about trying to change it. Don't worry about trying to attach a story to it. Just notice what's there and just see if you can sit with that for a little bit. And then again, you might do the same thing, checking in with your thoughts, just noticing any thoughts that are running through your mind. You might notice if your mind feels clear. You might notice if your mind and your thoughts are jumbled. Whatever it is that you notice. And again, don't have any harsh words with yourself or any judgments if you don't like what you find, or even passing any judgment if you do like what you find, right? Like, I want you to do your best to remain very neutral and just allow yourself to be the observer within your own experience. And then you might do the same thing with your emotions as well. And you might not necessarily have time to do all three, to check in with all three of these things, right? So you might just take a moment, and maybe you're feeling a little bit uptight, and say, all right, I'm just going to check in with my body. And as you do that, the first time around, just notice maybe where you're holding tightness. And then maybe the second time around, maybe you go to those areas of tightness and see how you can relax and soften into those areas a little bit. Same thing with your thoughts. Maybe if you notice that your thoughts are racing a little bit after you've kind of taken that role as you've taken that role of the observer, and you just noticed what's happened, then later coming back again from a neutral place. We're not trying to make ourselves feel bad for how we're feeling, because that doesn't serve anyone, right? Talking harshly to ourselves, talking meanly to ourselves, that actually goes completely against one of the tenets of our yoga practice, which is non-harming. And non-harming doesn't just apply to hurting others, it also applies to hurting ourselves. And one of the ways that we can harm ourselves is through our self-talk. So again, be mindful of how you speak to yourself. So mindfulness is another way that you can incorporate your yoga into your daily life. And again, same with the breath, the mindfulness. These do not have to be big 30-minute long ordeals, right? Just take 5 minutes if you have it. If not, take a minute. If not, take 30 seconds. It's just about carving out that little bit of time, no matter how small, for you in your practice, whatever it is maybe you feel you need in that moment. Now, another way that you can incorporate your yoga practice into your daily life is by taking a little bit of time for meditation. So this, again, it doesn't have to be very much. Maybe your meditation, you just take a moment, sit down or lay down. If I know a lot of us are working from home right now, maybe you go lay down on the couch, close your eyes, and just allow yourself to be still and quiet for a couple of minutes. I don't want you to stress out about completely emptying your mind right away. That is not something that comes easily for most people. So as you do this, just take that moment of stillness and quiet and just be with yourself. If you can calm the mind, or if you have little different breathing techniques. Last week I made a video about square breathing. Maybe you guide yourself through a square breathing exercise to help you clear your mind. Maybe you just take that time to rest, almost like a little mini shavasana throughout the day. That is an absolutely beautiful way to, again, incorporate our yoga into our daily life. And you will be totally amazed at how you take these little moments and carve out these little moments for yourself, really what that can do for you, and then even what that can do for your yoga practice once you are able to come back to your mat and have a full hour and a half long practice. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is movement, right? That's what most of us think of when we think of our yoga practice. And one really beautiful way that you can incorporate it is maybe you only have 5 minutes. If that's the case, then maybe just take a child's pose for 5 minutes. Maybe you just take a couple rounds of cat and cow. Maybe you take 5 minutes of legs up the wall. Any pose that you feel your body needs, that you don't necessarily need to be super warmed up for. Maybe you just take some time, maybe you just stretch your neck out, maybe you just roll your shoulders out a little bit, and then close your eyes and just take a few deep breaths. It doesn't have to be these super elaborate, very well thought out sequences. Like, yes, those are amazing. Yes, those have their benefits, but taking these small moments also have their benefits. And I think that once you can really figure out what it is that you need most, and maybe you don't know, and that's totally fine. Maybe you take some of these tips that I've given you today, maybe you try each of them out and see how that goes. And another thing I want to mention is this is not by any means an exhaustive list of how you can incorporate yoga into your daily life. These are just some of the things that I personally have found super, super helpful, and I also find them to be very accessible ways that pretty much most of us, if not all of us, can achieve on our own. You don't need a YouTube video to take a moment of quiet. You don't need a YouTube video to take a moment of just taking a few breaths. You don't need someone there guiding you for just a few moments in child's pose. So I would absolutely love for you guys to share with me how you all like to incorporate yoga into your daily life. What are those little moments of your practice? What do those look like for you? Please drop a comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, let me know if you try out any of these tips and let me know what you think. Let me know how it felt. It can certainly be a little bit difficult at first if it's something that you're not familiar with, but that is why we call yoga a practice. We're never there. There's always something to work towards. There's always something to try and improve upon and better ourselves, right? Which is one of the things that I absolutely love about the practice is there's always work to be done. There's always something to practice, which I find just super, super beautiful and wonderful about yoga. If you like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I make new videos every Monday and Wednesday. Also, drop a comment down below with what types of video you would like to see me make next. I would definitely love to hear your feedback. And as always, you guys, the love, the light, and the darkness within me sees, honors, and recognizes the love, the light, and the darkness within you. Namaste.